Hey guys, and thank you for watching. I'm here to bring you another series in my makeup collection. We're going to talk eyeshadows today. Now, I was actually really surprised. I got a lot of views, a lot of likes, and a lot of comments on my lipstick declutter video. And I was a little cautious when I put that up just because it was like 32 minutes long. I wasn't really feeling good the day that I filmed it. And I was literally just like going through my lipsticks. But people seemed to really enjoy it. So I thought I would go through my eyeshadows, show you the palettes and single shadows that I have, and see how you guys like it. If you are into collection videos, please give me a thumbs up and comment down below which section of my makeup collection you'd like to see next, and I will get that up for you. Now, I do have a lot of eyeshadows sitting in front of me, so it would take forever if I tried to swatch them all. So what I'm going to do is just show you the eyeshadows that I have, give you my thoughts on them, and we'll just roll on through. Let's start with palettes. The very first eyeshadow palette that I have, I don't have it anymore. It was the Too Faced Natural Eye, I think. I'll try to insert a picture of it over here. I think it was the Natural Eye, and that was my very first like high-end palette, and I got that like 6 years ago maybe, and I used it a lot. And then it was something, once I started getting more palettes, I just pushed it to the side. And so I try not to hold on to things that I'm not using anymore. I try to give them away to someone who's going to use them. So I don't have that palette anymore, but my next high-end eyeshadow palette was the very coveted Urban Decay Naked palette. This is the original palette, and this was my second high-end purchase. I tend to favor warm tones, and this is a very warm-toned eyeshadow palette. If you're into golds, if you're into like warm brown shades, this is a really great palette for you. It comes with 12 shades. You have some nice brow bone inner corner highlights, you have some nice crease shades, you have some beautiful lid shades, and the deeper shades to deepen up that outer V. So this is a really good starter palette for people who are into warm tones. I also have two of the Lorac Pro palettes. I have the Lorac Pro 1 and the Lorac Pro 2 palette. I like the Pro 2 more than the Pro 1. The Lorac Pro 1 palette, it's definitely very warm toned. I do like that you have a whole row of mattes and a whole row of shimmers, but I tend to favor the Pro 2 more. I just really loved, oh my gosh, I just dug my nail into it. I just damaged Coco. I just really loved like this section over here with rosé and nectar, light brown, beige, buff. I just hung out over on this side of the palette. But these are really great for traveling. They're really versatile. And for beginners, I think this is an awesome palette because you have a really wide selection and you can create a lot of looks with these palettes alone. Next up is a palette that I could not put down when I first got it, but I don't find myself reaching for it as much now, and I do still really love it. It's by Morphe Brushes, and it was the Morphe Brushes Jaclyn Hill Favorites collab palette. And so as you can see, there are 4 rows of shadows with 7 rows in each. So you get a ton of eyeshadows. You get 28 eyeshadows. There are some great highlight shades. You have all kinds of browns and crease shades. I really do like these oranges to kind of warm up eyeshadow looks. You have purples, you have greens, you have burgundies. This is a really versatile palette. Now, since it was limited edition, you can't get it anymore, but Jaclyn Hill just chose her Morphe favorites and put them into a palette. She did not create any of these shades, so these are shades that you can find on Morphe's website, and you can pretty much recreate this palette. So it did get a ton of love when I first got it, but I just really don't find myself reaching for it anymore. I do still really love the palette though. This one's a little bit of a more recent purchase for me. It's the Violet Voss and Laura Lee collab. I have been wanting to try Violet Voss, and I was going back and forth. I keep all of the little plastic things that you saw fall out. I'm really into keeping these. I feel like it keeps my palette clean. But I've been really wanting to try out the Violet Voss shadows, and I was torn for a while whether I should get this or the Holy Grail palette. But I don't know, this one just spoke to me, and I think that it was the variety. It's very warm, you have golds, you have oranges, but you also have burgundy and green. You have a great basic shade for all over, you have a great black shade. This is another palette that if you're traveling, you can take this palette and you won't need any others with you. So I'm really glad that I picked this one up. My next palette was a disappointment for me, and it is the BH Cosmetics and Carly Bible palette. I have a whole review on this palette. I'll link it down below. If I have reviews on any of these palettes, I'll link them down below if you're interested in watching them. But I just can't get good pigmentation with this palette. I don't know if it's my specific palette, because looking at other people's reviews, they are loving the Carly Bible shadows. I've seen Carly do some eyeshadow looks with this palette, and I don't know, everybody else's look really nice and really pigmented, but when I've tried to use this palette, it literally looked like I had nothing on my eye. Like, I was taking pictures and sending it to Smegs because she found this in store and picked it up for me, and I was like, can you see my eyeshadow? And she was like, no, you need to add more. When? Added some more. Can you see it now? Nope. I just don't get good pigmentation with the shadows. Now the 4 highlighters, I do get really good pigment with them, and so I've been using these 2 lighter shadows actually on my eyelid. I have not used the highlighters to highlight, but I was really disappointed. This was a really affordable palette. I think it's like 15 bucks, but I just couldn't make it work for me. I'm still holding on to it. I'll probably still try it out again. I'll try it with different brushes, different primers, and see if I can make it work, but this might be something that I end up passing on in the future. I have another palette that was limited edition, and this is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Shadow Couture World Traveler palette, and I really love this palette. I used it a ton when I first got it. It has pink champagne, which is super popular. I really like Morocco and fudge. I like that it has soft peach to kind of put in my transition shade, and it's very versatile. It has a lot of variety with a blue, with a pink, with a gold. So I really love this palette, and I'm really happy that I picked it up. But again, it was limited edition, so if you don't have it, I mean, you can probably search for it on eBay or something. I know my husband, excuse me, I know my husband visits the website OfferUp a lot, and so there are people who are like selling their old palettes that they don't use, so maybe this is something you can find there, but I really do love this palette. Next is a palette that started out as limited edition. They made it permanent. I got a lot of use out of it, but I don't really reach for it anymore. And this is the Laura Mercier, I think it was called like the Artist 2 palette. And when I first got this, this was again one of my like first palettes. I used it a ton. You can see I hit pan on Fresco. I was really close to hitting pan on Sparkling Dew. I liked that it had purples. I love purples. I think African Violet is beautiful. And I used this a ton when I first got it, but this is something that I just don't really reach for anymore. And actually, I was trying to use some of this up. I mean, not like I can really use all the shadows up, but I was trying to use it, give it some love in the beginning of October, and that's when actually all of my eczema issues started happening on my eye. So I'm not sure if it was related to this palette. I have since stopped using it, but I'm still having the eczema issues, so it could be just a coincidence, but this is a palette that I will probably end up passing on. One of my newest palettes, another Anastasia Beverly Hills, the Master Palette by Mario. I love it. I have a review on it. I have 3-in-1 tutorial coming if it's not up already, so I will link both of those down below, but really glad I picked this up. Speaking of Anastasia Beverly Hills, I also have the Modern Renaissance palette coming, so that is one that will be in my collection. It's being shipped to me, so I'm just waiting to get that one as well. I do have a little quad of Anastasia shadows. These were actually the first Anastasia shadows that I got, and let me see if I can remember them all. This is the Pink Champagne. This one is Birkin, Sienna, and Dusty Rose. And so I really love these. I like that when you purchase 4 of them, you get this case for free. This would be really easy to travel with, and you can pop the shadows in and out. Speaking of more palettes, I have a variety palette. I have some blushes in here, and then this is a mixture of, these two are Anastasia Beverly Hills shadows. I think this one's Sangria and this one's Amber Rush. I got this little guy, it's an Urban Decay shadow in, I think it was an Ipsy bag, and the rest of these are Makeup Geek shadows, and these are the Makeup Geek shadows that like I don't reach for every day, but I still love them, so I just threw them in their own palette. And the reason why they're in their own palette is because my Makeup Geek palette is full of shadows. And Makeup Geek, I have got to say, is my favorite brand of eyeshadows. As you can tell, I usually have to force myself not to reach for this palette. I do have a Makeup Geek collection video. I'll link that down below, but I have gotten new shadows since then. So if you are interested in another Makeup Geek collection video with swatches, please let me know in the comments down below and I'd be happy to do that for you. Those are all of like my higher end palettes. Now I do have 2 containers of like individual shadows, so I'll just go through those really quickly. I do have Stila Kitten. This was really popular a couple years ago. Casey Holmes raved about it. I picked it up. I love it as like an inner corner highlight. I just don't use it as much since I have a ton of eyeshadows. I also really recommend the L'Oreal Infallible shadows from the drugstore. I have Amber Rush and I have Bronzed Taupe, and I used to use them a ton. Amber Rush is supposed to be a dupe for MAC's tan pigment, and I think they are pretty close dupes. And then Bronzed Taupe is just a beautiful bronzy taupey shade, and I like to use my fingers when I'm putting these on the lid, but as you can see, like, the oil in your fingers kind of collects in them. I don't really use these too much anymore, and they are older, so I should probably pitch them, but these are really beautiful shades. I also have a Makeup Geek pigment in Utopia. I don't know, I feel like it's kind of hard to use. I don't want to like tip it over. The sifter's kind of hard to use. It's hard for me to get product out. I mean, I know that the sifter's important, otherwise it would be super messy, but I just find that it's really hard to get the product out. But this is a beautiful pigment shade. I like to use it on top of like a black base or a white base, and it's just like a beautiful gold shade. It's really good for like New Year's looks and stuff. I also have, what was this called? A NYX Prismatic shadow in Mermaid. I used this for a specific look, and it actually shattered on its way to me, and I just kind of pressed it back in. But it's like a beautiful turquoise shimmer shade. I don't get much use out of it, but it's really pretty. Speaking of pigments, I do have a MAC pigment in, I don't know if you say rose or rosé. These little smaller pigments, they're like $10. I recommend getting these instead of the bigger ones because pigments last so long. And I mean, this isn't something that I use every day, but it's a beautiful shade. Sticking with MAC, I did get 2 samples, and again, these samples I got a while ago and they last you a long time. These are sample pigments. One is in tan and one is in old gold, and they're just really pretty shades. I mean, you can get a sample size for free and it's gonna last you a long time. I have a little quad from the drugstore. This is the Maybelline Chai Latte. This was, I think, a quad that was talked about a while ago, and it's really pretty, but I just don't prefer, like, I'm not a huge fan of the texture of these shadows. They're not real creamy and super pigmented, so this was something I got specifically to do my one brand Maybelline tutorial, and it's not something I'm gonna use again, probably. My birthday gift this year was the Urban Decay Midnight Cowboy Shadow. I like that they give these shadows away for birthday gifts, and it looks like a really pretty shade. I haven't used it yet, but I look forward to using it as either like an inner corner highlight or all over the lid. Let me tell you, these 2 little Wet n Wild guys, I love them. I like to use Creme Brulee either as like a brow bone highlight if I'm looking for a matte brow, or even all over to set my primer. And then there is Nutty, and Nutty is really pretty if you want to put it all over the lid or even to put it in the crease. And this is one of the shadows that you can do like just one shadow all over the whole eye, on your eyelid and in your crease, and it almost looks like you're using 2 shadows. So this is really good for like quick makeup days. I used to have a lot more Wet n Wild shadows. I had the Comfort Zone palette, and I also had like Walking on Eggshells and another trio, but I gave those to my niece as she was starting out in makeup just because I didn't reach for them a lot. But the Wet n Wild shadows are really good quality. If you're a beginner or on a budget or just into drugstore makeup, Wet n Wild, those are some good shadows to get. Last but not least in my collection, I have some ColourPop shadows. These came in the Kathleen Lights Where the Night Is quad that she collaborated with ColourPop. I have a love-hate relationship with these. I think ColourPop shadows are beautiful. However, the only way that I can get them to apply nicely is with my finger. So unless it's a shade that I'm going to use on the lid, I wouldn't purchase it from ColourPop. They're really affordable and they're beautiful shadows, but I really can only apply them on the lid. So this is Weenie. It's a beautiful like rose gold lid shade. I really like the shade Telepathy. It's like this beautiful bold gold shade. I like to use Porter if I'm looking for like a deep cranberry shade. And then this one I don't get a lot of use out of, Midnight, but this would be really pretty to put over like the NYX Jumbo Eye Pencil, like the black one. I feel like this would be really pretty topped on top of that. Alright, those are all of the eyeshadows in my collection. I know that it's a large collection, but like I'm a collector. I love eyeshadow palettes. I especially love Makeup Geek shadows. Those are my favorite by far. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please do let me know down below what other collection videos you want to see from me. Don't forget to subscribe on your way out, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.